Welcome to episode 10 of All About Design, the podcast where we dive deep into the spaces we live in, and sometimes completely reinvent. I'm Susan Parsons, an interior designer obsessed with turning houses into soulful, stylish homes with the true belief that interior design is a superpower. So today's episode's extra special because I'm joined by not only a very long-time friend, but one of the most talented designers I've ever worked with. We started our journey designing luxury international hotels, palaces, and London landmarks well over 20 years ago now, and we've brought that same flair into residential design, one dream home at a time. She's smart, she's stylish, and she's got stories you need to hear. Welcome, Melissa Morgan of Melissa Morgan Interiors. So,
Thank you. Hi.
hello. So today we're going to talk about our life in interior design of hotels back in the olden days, if you like, but then more recently how we've moved everything that we learnt really into residential design. So we're going to be talking about what hotel design taught us about luxury and detail, the intimacy now of working in people's houses, and how to blend our five-star thinking with day-to-day functionality. So, Melissa, how did you get into interior design? And it was obviously not in this country initially, was it?
No, so I always loved art and I loved drawing, I loved painting, I loved color, but I didn't think that I had enough originality to become an actual artist that earns any type of living. So interior design was an obvious practical application of art
Yeah.
because you're creating spaces that will give you a mood and you can use much more than just paint to do so.
Do you know, I don't think I knew that about you.
Mm,
I can't believe I didn't know that.
that's all right.
So we met at KCA International, and I'd been an air stewardess before, so I'd not come the traditional route. Did you come through college or what sort of
Did
art training?
Yeah, I did in Canada, which is where I was born and brought up. They only had one university in Ontario that offered an interior design course, which was Ryerson, and it was an amazing art university for all sorts of art, and it was amazing. But I unfortunately didn't have enough of a background. My high school was quite a small high school, and I wasn't as well prepared and equipped as other students who have come from a city. So I'm from a little town in the northern part of Ontario, in the middle of the Great Lakes, northern tip of Michigan. So, what was available to me was a lot more limited than somebody living in a city. So I ended up going to Fanshawe in college, and I loved Fanshawe because it offered an internship program, which a lot of the other universities didn't offer. So the internship, so you do your 3 years of learning in college, and then I went away to California for 4 months and did a kitchen design, in a kitchen design studio whilst a nanny, because internships in America don't often pay anything. So I had to supplement the income working as a nanny with a family, and then went back to finish off, and it was great.
Was KCA your first job in London?
The first job in London, but first I worked in Vancouver. I worked in a showroom called, can't remember the name of it now, Bonaparte Designs. And actually, the shop I had clipped out of a magazine when I was in high school, and I loved the shop and I loved the ethos of it, and then ended up stumbling upon it and working in the showroom without realizing that that was the thing that I had wanted to do.
Wow.
Again, it was very creative, and two very creative men, and it was just such an inspirational place to work. And I worked with a really talented team of metal workers and textile artists, and anything that you could conjure up, they could make for you. So
Wow.
it was an amazing opportunity.
Whatever you drew or whatever you were inspired by, they could make it.
Anything in metal, glass, and wood and
Wow.
textiles, they could just have it ready for you. So that was a great stepping stone into a hotel design where anything that you can conjure up will be
Yeah.
made for you. So
Yeah.
it was wonderful. And then I also designed a house from scratch as my first job out of college. So that was quite incredible. Still standing, still
Yeah. Brilliant.
not too dated yet. So that's
And then you moved to London.
And then I moved to London and started working at KCA. So I started off with almost like an internship, so learning the ropes and working in the UK. What I hadn't realized, in the UK, they divide up interior designers as architects and FF&E. And I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that divide, because in Canada, if you're training to be an interior designer, you do the CAD, you do the concepts for all of it. And I wasn't aware of this sort of categorizing, as it were. So when I
Yeah.
moved into KCA, I was put into the FF&E side. So
Yeah.
the fluffy stuff, as I've heard you call it.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's the fabrics, it's the finishes, the everything that's It is things that are screwed down, but basically everything that's sort of brought into the room after it's built in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
But as interior designers now and what we do residentially, we do space planning and we do things that are built-ins. It's having that background that we've got is great because we don't just do the fluffy stuff as well. But I came in and I was a junior. Um, Definitely, I think you were sat on my right hand side somewhere.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was. So I had, yeah, just returned from a little stint in South America when I
Yeah.
went back. KCA was very sweet and offered me my job back with a promotion.
And in those days, you have a huge library of fabrics and wallpapers. And we used to get spoiled rotten, didn't we? Because the reps would come in to us and show us all their latest products. Because we were doing hotels, it was wonderful in that you had, I suppose, if you specified a lamp for a hotel, later on down the line, I did a really big hotel at Richmond International, which is the 900 bedroom Fairmont Clock Tower Mecca. So obviously all the reps are dying for me to specify their lamp because
Yes,
they're
of
getting
course.
mine.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's two in each room. So that was the sort of thing we used to get spoilt rotten, didn't we?
We did. We did. We got invited to, all sorts of showroom galas and everything. And yeah, it was lovely. But we'd never had time to go because we always had a deadline.
Hmm. Yeah, there was always so much to do. So, and we were based in Vauxhall, so Chelsea Harbour is an amazing resource and it's got better and better. It was the other side of London, so to go sourcing, everything used to come to us, which is so nice.
It was so nice, really handy. And with hotels, you have more of a limited repertoire, don't you? You need to have certain criteria if you're going to be specifying the fabrics. For
Mm.
instance, in hotels, you can't use all of the ones that they have if they can't be treated.
And what's some standout projects for you? I know you worked on palaces, but you did one particularly wonderful London landmark.
Oh, baby, the Langham Hotel in
Yeah.
London. Yeah, I do have really fond memories, although I think it's probably 15 years ago since I was working on it. It had a major overhaul then. It was quite tired. I'm not sure how much money was spent on it before, but we definitely spent quite a bit more on the refurbishment of it from, new marble in the lobbies, new layouts, new, what was it, the Palm Court, all of the rooms, the spa, the meeting rooms, the whole business centre, which I'm not even sure is functional anymore, but such an amazing project to be having the opportunity to work on.
Yeah, and that took quite a few years, didn't it? You were doing that.
Well, I think I worked with Richmond International for probably about 5 years, and I think I was on the Langham the whole time. There'd be pauses here and there where I'd work on, say, the Jeddah Marriott Hotel or Four Seasons. I think I was working on a lobby in Abu Dhabi for Four Seasons, but I think most of my time was spent on the Langham
Which
and
at
all the
least was
different
nice
elements.
because you could go and see it and do on site.
Such an amazing opportunity to have a London hotel where I can just pop down and keep an eye on, when things were actually being built, when mock-up rooms were being made, you can go down and make an amendment here and there. Colours in situ, when you're picking your paint colours. It was just such an incredible opportunity.
And down to making the carpet designs and getting those samples produced and
Oh my goodness, we had everything. We had fabrics made. I remember going to Milan to go and have a look at their velvet workshops because one of the headboards was velvet.
Wow.
I had to go to Valencia in Spain to go and inspect the furniture that was being made there. So what I really, really loved about the design in hotels is that anything that you wanted to create could be created for you. So light fittings, if you have an inspiration for something, and actually if you wanted it tweaked or a different size or a different finish, then you can just do it all. And a manufacturer would be available to make it for you. The carpet designs, as you say, you can just get a couple of tufts and then suddenly, get your pencil out of Photoshop and then that carpet will be actually produced for rooms. The Langham Hotel had particularly over-the-top window treatments because, the grandeur of the Victoriana era, I felt that the windows really needed to have something that was more modern and simplistic, but needed to have all of the tassels.
Yeah.
And Wendy Cushing made me crystal tassels to the sort of desired lengths.
Sometimes the crossover when you go into residential design is quite hard because we've been quite spoilt by the fact that, we could get anything made or you could get artwork painted, couldn't you? You could get, like say, light fittings, you could get chairs reimagined. So then when you go into residentials, obviously you have to have a budget in mind a lot more than sometimes in hotels.
You do definitely, yeah. I mean, in the public areas of hotels, you had a bit more flexibility with your budget, didn't you? But the actual guest rooms were more limited. But as you say, the artwork, that was one of my most favorite elements of designing hotels is going and meeting with the artwork suppliers and saying, right, what have you got in your stock? And let's put this here and this here and this here.
And what do you think you've been able to bring over from designing hotels into what you do now?
That's a very good question. I think that people want to go to a hotel to escape and to feel spoiled and to have that sort of element of luxury, don't they? So I think that bringing that into people's homes, so it's not just picking out a sofa because you need something to sit on. It's about giving you something that immerses you and gives you a feeling of comfort and relaxation, and want to give that holiday feel in your own home. In a hotel is thought about. So every wall has a consideration. There's no real blank spaces. So actually, when you're designing in somebody's home, you have to think, okay, when you walk in, what's in the lobby? When you move into a living room or a kitchen, what is your eye going to be drawn to bring you around the room? So yeah, I think that's transferred over quite well.
So it's a total attention to detail, isn't it? Instead of you've got a sofa, you've got a rug, you've got a light. It's got to be so cohesive. And I always remember Quan Chu and the DNA of a scheme and how it all holds itself together from that point, which I've never let go of that, because if you're really struggling to get something to work, you go back to the basic, the beginning, or what's in the middle is the DNA. I think it'd be quite fun to share the process of a mock-up room. It's a little bit out of this world, isn't it? Sometimes I went to one that was in a shipping container that had been built to the exact size, and for all the world, you thought you were in the bedroom.
Well, I think the mock-up room that I walked into was in the Langham. I think they did one in the actual hotel that I was working on, and I hadn't been in another mock-up room, but yeah, it was quite incredible. They had all of the plastic and dust sheets all over this one particular wing of the hotel, or one particular floor, and they just had built this mock-up room there. The interior architects had gone and done all of the panel molding and the detailing of the skirting, and all of that was built, and you could see how the scaling was working, which was pretty great, and then how the color scheme worked with the light that was coming into the room. They did the marble bathrooms and everything to a spec, just to see if the heights were all working.
When I did St Pancras, because the chambers were obviously listed, we weren't allowed to attach anything to the walls at all.
What a
So
challenge.
you almost made like a box inside of the room that didn't touch the ceiling and didn't really touch the walls. And that was really fascinating to see how that became reality, because in your head, you're like, oh, is it going to look really strange? You've got this beautiful historic room with, I think it was 8 meter high ceilings or 5 meter
My
high.
goodness.
They were ginormous in the chambers side of things. And then you've got this very contemporary marble bathroom with very strongly figured black and white marble, which Martin Goddard actually had gone over to Italy and chose. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. But I mean, it was absolutely incredible. But then, so we did mock-up rooms in St Pancras to do those sorts of things, and it's quite interesting because it's been your baby for so long, hasn't it? And then you walk in and you see it in the flesh. I think we changed the carpet 3 or 4 times. The scale just wasn't big enough. Quite an interesting process. Often these days you can do a lot of it on visual software as well. I mean, we did do visuals back then as well, but it used to take quite a few days to create. Well, now you can create something so quickly, can't you?
You can indeed, yeah. No, the development of these computer programs is insane. I mean, in college, I was literally drawing with my 3-point perspective line, and then either markering, painting, hand coloring these renderings. And it would take just as long as the actual design concept.
Oh my goodness, I
And
know.
somebody just comes in now. I mean, but the stress, do you remember the stress of having to give the visualizer everything that they needed by their deadline? So literally the whole scheme had to be done within minutes, so that you had like the finishes, the furniture, the dimensions of all the furniture, so they could model it and build it and put it into the room. And I think that was needed for the presentation. So that was almost more stressful. Yes, the detailing in the room to make it look like it was actually lived in. That's the fun thing with hotel design, is you get to pick all of the elements in the room. So your crafts for your water, your accessories on your shelves, all of it. I remember sort of thinking, where on earth am I going to get books for? And then realizing that there's a company that supplies, books by the meter.
The colours that you want and the style. Yeah, it's great fun. It's like being a kid in a candy shop, isn't it?
It is,
and you
yeah.
think, this is actually a job because I love it so much. But over as you've moved from hotel design, what's the biggest hurdle you've faced, do you think, going into residential design?
Well, it's just then finding the things that you really want, but you can't find them anywhere. They don't exist. You know, they're in your head. When you're doing a hotel, you have 500 rooms to do. So therefore, if you needed to make a chair, you could make a chair because actually economically it would be just as well as. But in a residential, you have to just accept that you might have limitations to coffee tables or chairs or light fittings, and you have to then go and take your time to source the right ones rather than imagine them yourself. So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that was the biggest hurdle, just not thinking that somebody's just going to be able to make it for you.
I know. You actually hand draw your millwork, don't you? Or you do it on CAD still as well, and then get
Mm.
it made.
Give me a ruler, scale ruler, a piece of paper. I've got my drawing board in the background. I'm very
Yeah.
happy to spread out my tracing paper and then just to quickly whip it up by hand. But I
Yeah.
do like to specify in homes a lot of built-in joinery because it's just the most practical thing. You can go from the floor to the ceiling. It takes up the right space, fits the space well. Often if you're doing storage units, it just makes the most sense, really.
Yeah, and then you can obviously specify finishes and mirror and trim and handles. And it's not actually that much more expensive, I don't think, sometimes.
I mean, it depends on the application, I suppose. I'd just done a room, a primary suite. If you're on selling Sunset, it's a primary suite now, isn't it? Not a master suite. So the primary had a walk-in dressing area and a bedroom, and then an ensuite that we'd done. And the made more sense actually. I had thought that we would have a joiner come and make the wardrobes, but then finding the joiner that would give you the accuracy that actually a pre-made, so we just ended up going to Lemma, I think, wardrobes. But that's what they do. They're a specialist company in wardrobe design. So they have everything that fits well, the rails, the drawers, the combinations. I think there were probably about 50 or 60 different combinations of what you could have inside a wardrobe. And it was all made by them, so you knew that it was all going to be
Yeah. Well,
fitting.
these are the things, aren't they, that give it a bit more of a luxury feel, a bit like a hotel as well. But designing the interior of your wardrobe can be quite joyous because you can have glass fronted drawers for your belts and your and shoe racks and your accessories and your scarves, and it's so personal.
My last client was literally measuring their length of their trousers to see
Yeah.
how much they can fit below. If you have a trouser hanging, can we fit another drawer in below it? So yeah, I love it. It's detailed, but it's
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
definitely. I mean, that's when you get the best results, isn't it? So another big change, I guess, when you go from a professional career in a studio to working in people's houses is you become almost somebody that's a friend because you have to get to know them really well. But how do you find as an interior designer people's perception of you to the
Well,
reality?
yeah, I do think that interior design as a profession is a luxury, right? So I don't, it's not a necessity. You need to see the dentist, you need to see the doctor. You don't need to have an interior designer come into your home. So you definitely need to find somebody who you can trust and that you have a rapport with and that you will trust to give you what you're looking for.
Mm.
And I've absolutely loved meeting clients and working with them. I just want to help, I just want to meet them. I love to meet them first, have a good old chat, listen. That's the key. If you don't
Mm.
listen, you're not going to give them the results they need. I've had quite a few different clients come and say, actually, this person just doesn't listen to me. I'm very much of an opinion that if the person's the one living in the house, then you need to listen to what they want and then find out what their style is or what they're comfortable with and then give them an elevated version. So building that trust is huge. And you're right, it can be months and months of working with somebody and you want to make sure that you get along with them and that they are trusting in your process that you are going to give them what they're after.
You're in the Bedford area. I'm in Warwickshire, West Midlands area. I think in London and those sorts of areas, it's quite a common place to have an interior design. And sometimes outside of those areas, people now coming around to it a little bit more, thinking they might spend money on their houses and the design of it. But I sometimes come across this sort of barrier, I guess, to people just thinking interior design is for multi-million pound homes, when actually it can be for anyone, just to give a little bit of help or advice. It doesn't have to be massive amounts of
Oh,
money from them.
absolutely not. No, I mean, I think I've listened to you before talk about, you've shopped in the Range and Dunelm and, really basic high street stores. And I'm absolutely be there with you. You don't have to spend fortunes on it. The key for design, and again, you can work in different ways. You can have just a consultation, you can have a full presentation. I love it when somebody enlists an interior designer at the beginning of their build project before they've started building, and then you have a chance to say, actually, let's have a look at this lighting. And I've got one client who's approached me at the right time because they're spending all of this money on an extension, but actually the extension isn't going to give them the flexibility in the space that perhaps they ought to have. So it's annoying because now they've got to go through planning again. But but they've caught it. You're not then living with something that could have been improved at that time.
That's something I champion, is getting in with an architect just at that first planning stage, like you say.
And how are you going to be living in the space, and what is it for? And okay, so you need a table that's going to accommodate all of your guests for dinner if you love having dinner parties. And the lighting, as you mentioned before and in the podcast, it's so key to have the right lighting and the layering of lighting and the mood lighting, and that is really great when you're in the build stage rather than after the fact.
Retrofitting, and then it's horrible to see a perfect wall and then go, actually, you should have had a wall light in there, or you should have had some sort of soffit lighting, or and it will enhance your overall enjoyment of the project for many years if you do that now. And do you see any particular trends in residential design at the moment? I mean, a few years ago it was everything open plan. Now what do you think? Anything big that you've noticed?
Well, not necessarily. I do think that an open plan with flexible additions is quite useful. So if you do have some glass curtail doors that you could use, that they're open most of the time, but if you needed to close them off, then you can. But in an open plan, I think, again, some people will go and just get a big box put on the back, but actually an open plan doesn't necessarily mean you have to have just an open space. It's how you zone it. I've got one job where actually we put the fireplace center, so it's still an open plan. However, there's a wall created with, there's a bar and wine bottle displays and everything, and wrapping around a fireplace. So actually you're creating a divide within the open plan. So it's still open. However, you have different focal points within the room.
And what's the best project do you think you've worked on ever?
Gosh, you can't ask that question. I don't know.
What's your most memorable project in hotels?
Well, I think the most memorable project was probably, again, the Langham Hotel. That was such an amazing space. I really loved thinking about, the different elements. So you had the spa, the walls had to be a certain sort of finish. And we had a big budget, a limited budget for that one as well. So you had to, create usable, practical spaces, but give a feeling of calmness. And, I don't know, it was so much fun to just, even just to design all of the display cabinets, which your product will be sold from. We were trying to create little jewels. The meeting rooms were fun because, again, it was a little bit more corporate, but we wanted to still have the Langham luxury and the warmth put into them. So I loved all the little challenges that all the different spaces for the Langham offered. The ballroom was brilliant. It's all so much fun.
I remember going to some of the champagne reception there. I think it was the opening. I remember purples and beautiful crystals.
That was in the lobby, yes. So we had some purple and aqua fabric curtains. That was one of the fabrics I had to travel for to see, because how it was being made in this gorgeous mill on the side of Lake Como. It's just so gorgeous. And yes, we did have some purple tassels and crystals within them for that space.
You also do commercial work, don't you? You've just done a beautiful atrium for a local school.
For the local school, I do find that if you have, the creative process doesn't have to be limited to one thing, does it? So a lot of people who are interior designs will also look at a garden. They'll also look at, other space. They might look at when you're putting posters together for invites, even for birthday parties. You can tell that if there's somebody who might be a little bit more on the creative. One thing that I've done a lot more of when I'm in between or even alongside a job, I'll work on the school PTA, and we do a lot of balls and events. That means that you need to have table dressings, space dressings. But an event will often need somebody with a creative mind to be able to envision how a room will be dressed from some of the events that we put on with the PTA. Is I was asked to do the atrium part of the prep school. So literally was asked just to do some furniture for the room. But I went into the space and I said, what are you using it for? And basically it was just a corridor with a piano in it that joined the year 3 building with the year 4 building, and listened to what they wanted to do. And they wanted it to be quite a flexible space. They didn't want anything permanent. So we had to think about really clever pull out benches that can then push away at the end of it. Lots of shelving and displays for all of the little mini projects that the children are doing. So the children, the children could be proud when they walk into the space. We gave them a flexible pegboard that they can use for storing something, or at the moment they've got these sort of celebratory, each year has a boy who's been celebrated that week, so it's like the star of the week kind of thing. That's been displayed. So they have these wobble cushions, which are basically sort of recycled rubber and inflated with air, so you can sit on the floor, but actually if you're fidgety, it'll give you something to fidget, which means apparently your mind can be focused on what the teacher
Oh,
is saying.
very
So now the
interesting.
room is being used for assemblies, choir rehearsals, house assemblies, drama groups. We have a little whiteboard in there that's shaped like a speech bubble, and then we put some quotation marks around it with a little pop of yellows. There's pops of color, but we're trying to not make it too overwhelming. We want to stimulate, but without making it chaotic. So it was a lovely challenge. This is in a boys' school, so the boys will kneel and they'll get their pads out and they'll write on something. So we've given them a bench that they can sort of kneel and write. We have lots of fabric left over from the benches, so we don't like waste. So we ended up using that fabric as wall acoustic panels. And then also the flooring was super sustainable. So it's called Molo and it's made out of mushroom spores. So we're trying to give a little sense of eco in there. Innovations these days for sustainable products.
So you're always learning, aren't you, from those sorts of things?
Absolutely.
I help out a little bit at my school and I would be constantly on Canva designing things because I just love making it all so perfect. You want everything you touch to look really nice and to feel really nice. And interior design is very, very visual. It's how it makes you feel. And that's the big reason around doing all this is because I think your home needs to be your sanctuary and where you're surrounded by things they love and it's got to work for everybody, but it's deeper than it appears sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it absolutely is. Like all of the little details of that, just so that you're not feeling uncomfortable in any way. What do you think is the biggest shift from hotel to residential? What do you like?
Great question. Great question. I think actually it's quite interesting with scale. Some of the sizes of areas we worked on, especially in the Mecca project, you couldn't get your head around how big it was. Like, I think you could have got a jumbo jet in the ballroom. It was that big.
Yeah.
So when you're sort of translating scale, like the chandeliers had to be a
Oh,
work of art. I mean,
yeah.
they were quite fun to design, weren't they? The
Oh, they were so
chandeliers
much fun. I love
because we'd work with people like Preciosa and they'd come and see us from the Czech Republic.
Yes, of course, yeah. Mouth blown, all of the mouth blown
Oh,
glass. Yeah.
stunning. And you could just literally make it, draw it. They would bring it to life. They'd be like meters and meters wide, and that was incredible. So designing a bit like you said in that way, designing on that sort of scale and with that sort of freedom to then come back into a residential body. If you were designing something huge, to then sort of convert that back into maybe a powder room, and the detail still has to be the same amount of detail. You still need the flooring, you still need the wall, you still need some coving, perhaps the lighting. So it's the same job, but on a very different scale, but I quite enjoy that as well.
I do like that so many clients have such different style and taste, and I like being able to get to know them and giving them exactly what's going to suit, their needs and their likes, and they're so different. And I love that one person might like green and the other person might like a bit of salmon, or and then you can really play around with the color. You're not boxed in any way. I really like picking out handles.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really sad, but if you're going to design a piece of furniture, a chest of drawers, like I love,
Yeah.
selecting the handle that's going to go on that because it will change the look completely.
It's very tactile, isn't it? Yeah. And people are often scared of colour, aren't they? And they'll say, I want you to sort of challenge me a little bit, but I can't cope with red or something. How do you work around that? Do you try and get a little bit of red in so they go, actually, I do quite like that? Or do you steer clear?
I think I would more likely listen to what the client says. If they really don't like red, maybe perhaps put a cushion in that has a dot of it, because sometimes if you put green, your eye will automatically want the complementary color in there somewhere in some capacity. So you do need to have a little bit, otherwise your eye will create the red somewhere and in a less desirable way.
Mm.
Yeah, I think pushing them a little bit. Blue has been so popular for so many years now. Sometimes if you select, if you try to design something that's not blue,
Mm.
people are a bit shy, but it's popular for a reason. There's so many different hues and tones of blue that you can create endless different possibilities.
Yeah.
So you've got the smart navy and the crisp white, or the more
Yeah.
subtle aquas. And
One of our podcasts was talking about colour, quite a lot of detail, and blue is the most popular colour in the world, which is not a surprise, obviously. But like you say, it's one of the most versatile because you can go, all the way through to almost like an indigo, right up to a baby blue, and oh, it's lovely. Do you find clients want to go neutrals on a lot of the big items, or would you say that they're going a little bit more daring these days?
I think a lot of them, it varies. I mean, one of my most recent projects has gone very earthy, so we have gone back into the chocolates
Mm.
and the grages with the chocolates, but it was pulling out the tones in the marble that was used in the bathroom. It's more of a limestone sort of marble, so it was a little bit warmer than other colors, and I think that it's just calming, and it was lovely. You're basically going to bed in like a box of your mug of cocoa. It's just,
Sounds
yeah,
amazing.
really rich.
Yes. Do you sort of keep an eye on what's going on in the States and Canada compared to what's going on in the UK? Because I hear quite often, if I'm listening to another podcast in America, they keep going on about, the chocolates and the browns and things, and that's going out now.
Is
Whereas I think
it?
we're having them coming back in.
So when I go home, browns have been in for so long in Canada. It's always been a brown kind of thing, whereas we've had more grays or blacks or other type of tones. And brown in Canada seemed to always be the way forward. Dark chocolate floors, the sort of bronzy kind of color on the finishes. That has always been in. So if it's going out, it's because it was in there for a lot longer than it
Mm,
has been elsewhere.
mm,
I know, all of the 70s tones are still sort of fashionable at the moment, aren't they?
mm.
But this is the problem, you have decades that are defined by this color combinations, the 70s with their avocado bathroom units and everything. But
Yeah,
I don't think you can just limit yourself, I think if you like a color, I think you should just run with it rather than
definitely.
following the trends, because I mean, for me, I love yellow. Yellow is my favorite color. I'm
Mm,
wearing it now.
yeah.
It's literally, I will put yellow in every space because it's an unexpected little pop of, joy. I do love it. My middle name is Joy. I love yellow.
Well, the colour of the year, the Dulux colour of the year is pure joy, isn't
Of
it? And
course,
that
yes.
is, I have it round here somewhere. Oh, true joy. Yeah, true joy.
Yes,
Yes,
that is
because
very bright and
I
colourful.
met Mariana, as you know, and she was talking me all this wonderful how it's colour of the year 2025, and how you can actually get a pop of yellow, and it just does uplift you, definitely. Are you? I suppose having been a designer for many, many years, your colour psychology, your understanding of it is probably something you just naturally do. But is it something you think about?
The color
Mm,
psychology. Yeah, definitely. Again, you have to think about how you're going to be using the space. Do you want to feel invigorated, or do you want to feel calm, or do I think in our living room at home, I've gone for quite a light color on the walls, but then I put this sort of Wedgwood blue on the ceiling because it just has a
mm,
really calming effect on me,
lovely.
and it feels a bit more elevated. Yeah, I think the color choice and the use of color where it is.
Yeah.
In the room. This is so important. I mean, you have a lot of people who are like, well, I've got children, I can only go for a dark colored sofa. I mean, there are certain limitations if you are designing for a family. You don't want your gorgeous sofas to be ruined in an instant when a child smears ice lolly or grape juice or something on it. So I've got 3 kids. I think that my understanding of family life and practicalities is quite extensive compared to the younger me who wouldn't have ever thought about
Mm.
certain things like a rug. I'd love to have a plain, gorgeous, just focus rug, but actually the practicalities of life, if somebody comes in and spills a little bit of something on it, that rug is ruined. Whereas if you have a bit more movement within it, or a wash of, different tones together, it's really important.
We try and avoid trends as a word, I guess, because it's like you say, you've got to do what you love, not follow a trend. But are there any things at the moment that you really love?
Well, I think I do like the use of natural materials and the idea of more sustainability, because this mass-produced everything. I do feel actually that the government really needs to step up on the sustainability element to design, because without, if you keep putting taxes on organics and that sort of thing,
Mm,
then people won't be able to use them. I do feel like there shouldn't be as many barriers for using natural products that are
mm,
good for the environment.
definitely. There are oftentimes lots of ways where we have to put a scheme together for a budget and then use really special things at the end, and that can completely uplift it, like the handles you were saying, perhaps, or a particular gorgeous fabric on a cushion that just, it might not be like a £5,000 sofa, which not many people can afford, but you can make it look like that by what you put onto it, the throws or the cushions and things like that. So I think as a residential designer, it's those clever things you can get for a very good price that, used in the right place, really elevate a scheme. But if you're desperate to get something important and special in there, then go for it. In a way, just find a way.
Yeah, that's it. Or wait for it. If it's not in your budget now, it's frustrating. I was looking through pictures the other day, and the how, my kitchen, lounge, living room has evolved because I couldn't afford to put everything in there. So there's a picture of the table. Okay, oh, now we've got some chairs with that
Yeah.
table. Okay, now actually we've reupholstered the chairs to be the color that we wanted to be, and now here's a rug. And so if you add to it, as a designer, it's not great to have to wait.
No,
It can
I'm
be a
not
little
very
bit
good.
impatient sometimes to wait to see the finished article. However, if you can wait to make sure that you can invest in the right piece, sometimes I'm just impatient and I'll go to Home Sense and have temporary stop gaps of,
Yeah.
this will do. And then I get frustrated if it doesn't last, or, if
Yeah.
it's not quite the right quality, or if it, yeah.
Do you find it really difficult to design for your own house?
It's impossible because I love everything. I love all the styles. I have an appreciation for all of the colors. I mean, I would love to say that I'm going to be in sort of a very sort of calm sanctuary, so that it evokes the feelings of being in Spain or Portugal. But then equally, I have an appreciation for Art Deco or, other styles. So it's really tricky
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
balance. So my house is a mishmash, basically.
Your house is beautiful. I haven't been to your house for far too long. Were you using a really, really gorgeous deep chocolate somewhere?
In the hallway and in the kitchen, yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
come visit. Yes,
You do
I
need
need
to
to
come
come.
and visit.
Yeah.
With like a champagne-y kind of really pale, like glass doors. Yeah.
But then that's the thing. We know too much. We see too much all the time, and it's trying not to be influenced by it. And then when it comes to doing my own home, I'm sort of like, okay, I like that. I love that. So hard, isn't it?
So hard. It's
Mm.
impossible.
Yeah, it is impossible. And like I said before, then it goes into the garden. And you're like, okay, what else can I design? And then it's sort of on to the next thing. And sometimes it's like, stop, just stop.
But then I do sometimes like just not be able to finish something. So we still have artwork missing in
Yeah.
places because I haven't found the right thing yet. I've still got artwork just behind me that's just
Yeah.
literally just plonked there because I haven't actually managed to put it up on the walls or find the right home for them.
What's the next few years look like for you in terms of projects you'd like to do, places you'd like to go to get
I mean,
inspiration?
I think I have done a couple of little boutique hotels. I really love the boutique hotel because you're individual little rooms. You're creating a feeling for people. You have a little restaurant perhaps or a common space. Yeah, I do love a boutique hotel.
Yeah.
And I love a restaurant.
Yeah.
I love the residential as well. I'd like to build myself a little cabin in the Canadian wilderness.
Oh, wow.
I'm desperate to do some sort of home renovations, just buy somewhere and just renovate it and then
Yeah.
give it back.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to be doing in the next 6 months or so a very big rambling country pub. And it's quite interesting. There's obviously the regulars sometimes don't like change, but it's a bit like when you stop seeing something because you're there all the time, and actually it's not looking that pretty these days. This place, so it's trying to bring a design that is going to attract people from far and wide, but also not upset the people that have been the core of their sort of revenue and community, really. So that's going to be quite a challenge, I think. But I love things like that, and there's so many different areas in this space that actually you could tell a few different stories and
Oh,
create your
yeah.
little
I love
niches.
the history of the building as an inspiration to go back on.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Well,
you're
I
going to
did.
have a great time with that.
Yeah, hopefully. When Debs and I worked together at Novo Interiors, we did the local cricket club. That was amazing because of all the trophies. Again, trying to keep everyone happy. Sometimes it gets a little bit political, doesn't it, with these sort of things and the budgets and so on. So I think interior designer these days has to wear quite a lot of hats.
You do, you really do. You definitely need to be able to manage people that are working with you. You need to be able to communicate ideas and have a rapport, make sure that you're delivering everything.
We wanted to make sure we got all the memorabilia on the walls, all the trophy boards, and actually that was what made the final project. So it's quite interesting when you mention things like not finishing off. I talk quite often about don't get design fatigue. You see it through to the end, even if it's temporary. Put a lovely vase on the shelf that could be from Dunelm, but just get something on, get the mirror on the wall, get the pictures into the space, get your cushions there. Because in this cricket club, you know, it looked amazing. We did new flooring and paint and colour, and it was texture. But those things going on the wall gave it this real depth of character. So important to finish off.
Yeah, it's important to finish it off. Otherwise, it's just a big gap. And why is it there?
You get frustrated because you think I've spent all this money and I'm not quite satisfied. It's like if you wear a dress and you haven't got your hair done and your nice earrings on, your makeup, those are the finishing touches. Well, it's been amazing to talk to you. It's so interesting to talk to a lady who has her own design business as well, seeing where the parallels are and the projects you've worked on. So thanks so much for joining me today.
That's all right. It's been a pleasure. Lovely to catch up.
And I'll pop all of Melissa's details of her website and email address on the credits at the end of this episode. If you have any questions in the meantime, please do write in. The email address is contact@allaboutdesign.online. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.